So for my egg drop contraption, I decided to make something that looks like this. So there's a plastic bag here at the top. It's completely covered in bits of pool noodles, and then the egg actually fits inside this cotton padding here, and the lid closes. So when I was making this, my main goal was to minimize the force acting on the egg at impact. So if I could spread this force out or dissipate this force somehow, that was my goal, so that the shell of the egg didn't crack when it impacted the concrete. So the first physics concept that is represented in my contraption is air resistance. So my goal was to increase the air resistance acting on my contraption and the egg. So for one, the shape of my contraption, but also the plastic bag was the main culprit behind increasing air resistance. So as the contraption goes into its free fall, the air gets caught in the bag, which kind of acts as a parachute, and it slows the contraption down. So this makes it so that the egg holder is going to hit the ground with a decreased velocity, resulting in less force acting back on the egg holder, so it is less likely to crack the eggshell. The second physics concept that my contraption embodies is force distribution. So although my contraption isn't particularly large, it still has a much larger surface area than just an egg on its own. So by increasing the surface area, I'm also increasing the area that the force is being distributed over, so I'm able to spread out the force. So this means that rather than having a very concentrated area that the force hits on, like the egg, which is very small, so the force is just fully hitting that egg, I'm able to spread this force of impact out. So it's no longer just concentrated to that one area, it's spread over the entire contraption, and this also is resulting in less pressure on the egg. So the third physics concept that I kind of represented in my contraption is Newton's third law. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So in this case, the force that the egg exerts on the ground at impact, the ground exerts this force back on the egg, so equal and opposite reaction. So this is kind of the main push behind my entire contraption, was to absorb this force that was being pushed back on it, but especially the pool noodles and the cotton, because they're quite elastic. So as this contraption is going to hit the ground, it's going to deform elastically, and some of that force is going to dissipate throughout the contraption. The eggshell still is going to experience some force, but not nearly as much and not enough to crack. So if it were just the egg hitting the ground, the eggshell is not at all elastic, so rather than deforming at impact and reforming, it would just crack all over the concrete, whereas the pool noodles and the cotton and the rest of the contraption are able to deform as they hit the ground and then reform without any damage. My fourth physics concept that I am going to talk about in my contraption is impulse. So impulse is the change in momentum, and as we've talked about in class, when there's a car accident involving two cars, the person who's in the car that changed directions during the accident is more injured because they are kind of jerking their body, and they have to completely go one direction and then change the other direction. So this is kind of the same idea for the egg in my contraption. So I put all of this cotton inside the contraption to somewhat trap the egg so that it has very little chance to change direction at impact, hopefully making it so that it sustains less injury. So the cotton is also there to increase the time over which the force is applied, which is resulting in a force decrease. But by trapping the egg in there, it can't really change direction, and it can't sustain as much injury, so it won't crack the shell. And also, by reducing the change in direction, you can also reduce the effect of impulse on an egg, making it so that it doesn't break during impact. So these four physics concepts and many other work together in this contraption to hopefully not crack my egg tomorrow when we drop it at school.